Oh. So I hand over. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Also, those watching online. I'm Gwen Robinson, past president of the Foreign Correspondents Club and editor-at-large of Nikkei Asia. Just want to apologise for the delay. We had a notice up on our online page, but failed to make an announcement. We're about to start the program, so if we could have just a little bit of silence there. Thanks. So as we all know, this is the 1-year anniversary week of the military coup in Myanmar, in which time the economy has come close to collapse. Many people have been killed or jailed. More than 400,000 people have been displaced. Conflict has escalated in many parts of the country. I don't really need to go on because I think everyone who's in this room is here because they care about and understand the seriousness of the crisis in Myanmar. So tonight, the FCCT will screen 4 short films created by Burmese filmmakers, including the Bangkok premiere of Walking Through the Darkness by Aung Naing Soe, to mark the coup and the launch of the Burma Spring Film Festival. This film follows 5 journalists as they document the brutality the Myanmar military perpetrates against its own people, which has resulted in the misery that we've seen in the last year. We've also got some rare humour in a film in this lineup with The Special One, which is about a Yangon fishmonger by award-winning director Lam Inu, and also a film called The Goods, a dramatic film by director Tut Ye Chan, based on a true story about a young orphan girl forced to live with her aunt and then sold off as a housemaid. And then there is What Future, narrated by a Burmese journalist. Some of these are very, very short, just 2 minutes. The longest is 15 minutes. So we will then follow that with a very short discussion, and we're very lucky to have here tonight Aung Naing Soe, who made the film Walking Through the Darkness, and journalist Ye Win Tu, one of those portrayed in his documentary. In addition, to let you know, this is very relevant for the coming days, the FCCT is partnering with the Burma Spring Film Festival for the 2nd edition of the festival, now running until February the 13th online. And we very much welcome Jeannie Hallisey here tonight, a co-organiser of the festival, an FCCT stalwart member and an acclaimed filmmaker herself, most recently of the very powerful documentary Padauk Myanmar Spring. She'll talk about the festival, but just briefly to say to you all that the inaugural festival launched in June last year, so extraordinary speed after the February coup, and was extremely popular. It gave a platform for some important films that emerged in the aftermath of the coup. 1 year later, I think the quality and the breadth of some of these offerings has increased even more. So you can actually get online and see some of these films up till February the 13th. So I'll hand over to Jeannie right now, and then we'll come back with screening these films and the discussion between filmmakers. So Jeannie, over to you.
Thank you so much, Gwen, and thanks to everybody for coming to the FCCT for this official Asia launch, the closest we can get to Burma, Myanmar, of the Burma Spring Benefit Film Festival. I just wanted to give a very brief overview of the festival, and we'll go straight into the films. The festival, as Gwen said, was launched last year, and we started organizing just actually about 6 weeks after the coup. And it's comprised of a team of volunteers in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I just wanted to give a shout out to all of them. Gaetano Kazuo Maeda, who is a well-known film curator. He's the founder of the Burma Spring, of the International Buddhist Film Festival, which is quite a formidable festival that travels around the world, and is a filmmaker himself, and an award-winning filmmaker, documentary filmmaker, Ellen Bruno, who has also worked in Myanmar and also teaches at the Yangon Film School, which is, of course, right now under a great difficulty given the coup. It's also comprised of the renowned poet and translator Kenneth Wong. He is one of Burma's foremost literary translators living in the Bay Area and is teaching the first ever Burmese language course at the University of California at Berkeley. And producer Greg Butensky, who is the producer of Karana Productions, the documentary film group that I am part of, a nonprofit film group that makes human rights content. And finally, Alan Sanake, who is a highly regarded Buddhist leader internationally and is a humanitarian who has done a tremendous job at fundraising even long before the coup in response to the Rohingya crisis and has continued since. The festival is really remarkable, and I really encourage all of you to take the time during these next 11 days left. And part of the reason that we did the encore was we received many, many messages when we launched the festival last year, people telling us that there was so much to choose from, they just simply didn't have time to watch all the films. And they asked us, will you do it again? And at which time we said, well, let's wait and see, because it's a huge effort to do that. But we made a decision based upon the severity of the conditions that have deteriorated so much that the best timing to do the encore edition, which would be for the 1 year anniversary. In our first edition, Eventive, the platform that hosts us, calculates how many people are logging in, and we had over 7,100 viewers from around the world, from places as far as Egypt and Latin America, in Argentina. It was quite remarkable. And we have a selection of outstanding films. We have over 43 films that are a range of subject matter, and if you go on the website and you want to choose a film according to a subject, we have films documentary, dramatic, short, human rights, ethnic groups, LGBTQ, Buddhism, environment, women's issues, and most importantly, Burma Director, which is what we're choosing to showcase here this evening. We've added several new additions to this 2022 lineup that I'm very excited about. And one of the new additions is, of course, the premiere that we're having tonight, Walking Through the Darkness. In addition, on our website, you can access the speakers forum that we convened last year. We organized 10 speakers forums, each of which had 3 to 4 speakers that were leading human rights defenders or leading experts on Burma on a range of issues, including human rights, internally displaced persons in the humanitarian crisis, the environmental destruction, and it gives a great context. And we recorded them all, and they're logged on our website, and you can access them. We created a YouTube channel, and they are really remarkable discussions that I would encourage you to listen to. We've added now Kenneth Wong, one of our festival team members, has done an excellent update on the Ethos publication, which you might recall we launched here on the compilation of poetry and prose by Myanmar writers. And he spoke with the Coco Kothet, who's the lead translator for that project and the member of the Ethos publication. That's up there. And we have also a new partner with Insight Myanmar, and they did a series of podcasts that are up-to-date contemporary information that were just recorded in the last few weeks, as well as a list of recent recordings on KPFA radio in Berkeley, California. There are 4 half-hour episodes, all of which were recorded in the last 2 months, that give up-to-date, on-the-ground reporting and eyewitness accounts of the tragedy and the courage and the inspiration that we have seen across the border areas. So I encourage you all to go on there. We were quite taken aback. The festival, we set out thinking that maybe we could raise $5,000 or $10,000, and in the end, we raised over $50,000. And all of that funding went directly to community-based organizations or Burmese NGOs that were working on the ground, providing humanitarian emergency assistance. So any donation that you make will go for that. And we do welcome contributions because the entire festival effort is a volunteer-driven event. And just to summarize, the festival text says that any donations that you make will provide humanitarian assistance in Chin, Kachin, Karen, Karenni, and Shan states, which are, of course, the ethnic areas that are most severely impacted by the current conflict, are also impacted by looming food insecurity that will, needless to say, grow even more imminent in need as the crisis continues, emergency shelter needs, emergency medicines. And we also have a special fund that goes specifically to support freelance media and ethnic media organizations that are continuing at great risk to cover the events and the violence and, again, the resistance to the violence across their country. So your contributions will make a difference in Myanmar by enabling these organizations to continue their grassroots work. And we really thank the FCCT for their partnership. It means a lot to us in particular because tonight's film is, of course, going to focus on the tremendous, I wouldn't even call it courage, I would call it something greater than that. It's something more than courage. It comes from a kind of grit of the soul. When you are somebody who is covering events in your own country, it is quite different than being a foreign correspondent. And these films that we selected tonight were explicitly done to showcase and illuminate the tremendous talent that Myanmar has in their emerging filmmakers community, in their journalist community, in their VJ community. And I'm quite certain that you'll be as moved as we were with the selection that we have tonight. So as we go along, we'd like to also thank our tech support, Julian Haddon. And each film I will briefly introduce in the interim of the playing of the film to give him a little piece of time as well to queue up the next film. So we'll go through the film program and then we'll have the discussion with our Burmese colleagues who we're very grateful are here with us this evening. And thanks to Gwen and the FCCT for hosting this. So we're going to begin, we'll have the lights out, Kundam or someone, and we'll just begin first with the festival trailer. Kundam, we're going to keep the lights down because we're going straight to the film program. So the first up in our selection tonight is a film called The Goods. It is 15 minutes long and it's by a young director, Tut Ye Jaw. It is from Tom Tit Film Productions, and it's based on a true story. It's a dramatic short about a young orphan girl who is forced to live with her aunt and is sold off as a housemate and then sold again and again. And Tut Ye Jaw was one of the the great talents that I've mentioned, because there's a lot of really excellent films being made right now in Myanmar by Myanmar filmmakers, and he's one of them. He splashed on the scene in 2016 when he was part of the visual documentary project, which was out of Kyoto University Center for Southeast Asian Studies, at which time he co-directed a film called 60 Days that chronicled the Burmese student protests against the national education law in Myanmar. And this film, I would like to note, first screened in Myanmar at the Human Rights, Human Dignity International Film Festival, which was founded by Myanmar filmmaker and Film Institute director Mintin Kokoji and the journalist and academic Moma Myat. And Mintin Kokoji is among those who is now imprisoned, and he's actually suffering from third stage cancer as we speak. He's in prison. And that film festival really made its mark as the premier festival in Southeast Asia, with submissions, hundreds and hundreds of submissions from around the world, and a panel of judges that included esteemed documentary award filmmakers from Sundance and IDFA, and it was quite something. And so we also wanted to recognize Mintin Kokoji tonight. So we're going to first start with The Goods, a dramatic short. Can we get the lights down, please? Thank you.
Now by adult, we will resume the meal a day in Hollywood hardware. Yalam Horo.
I see. You are it.
Chào bà nè, mong khi mà nó. Nó là cái lúc một này, nó này nó. Bài ăn nghe sẽ xịt lên mau bây giờ đi. Sẽ xịt là bài nó sẽ xịt.
นี่เอ๊ะอะไรတိုက်စင်းနေမရဘူးဘယ်လိုအမားတွေခေါ်ထားမှလည်းမသိဘူးရော့နောက်ဘယ်တော့မှမလဲဒီကောင်မတော့ကွာအဲ့ဒါဘယ်လိုလုပ်ရလဲဟောပြမကြည့်နဲ့နောက်ကဒီလိုလုပ်ရင်ဒီတက်ပုံတာ
ဟေးမာရီဟာဘယ်လိုလဲမင်းကမှလည်းတွေ့နေအဖြစ်လာတယ်ဟိုလိုကြီးထိုးอ่ะဟာဘယ်တော့ရုံမာဒီလဲနားပါနေနော်လောက်ပါဖြစ်နေညီမလေးရမလေးချက်နေအများဆုံးထွက်ပေးကြအောင်နော်ဟုတ်လားတော့မှလည်းဒီမမလည်းပြည့်စစ်စားနေတာအမောက်တစ်ခါမှဖုန်းတော့ပတ်စံလည်းမရှိတော့ဘူးအမောက်တယောက်ကျော်ကိုတော့အားဒီလောက်တစ်ခါတော့လုပ်ကြရအောင်လုပ်ရနော်ဒီပေါ်သမီးတို့ကစားရမှာမလုပ်တတ်တာဒါပဲတော့မှာပေါ့ဒါပေမဲ့နောက်ဆုံးတစ်ချိန်ပဲနော်ဒီပိုင်းမလေးလည်းနော်ဒီခဏနေလေးဆိုရင်တေးကြီးပြလာလိမ့်မယ်နော်အဲ့တေးကြီးနဲ့ဤလေးကိုအမနဲ့ဆက်တင်မယ်ညီမလေးအဲ့တေးကြီးတစ်ပတ်လောက်လိုက်တော့လိုက်နော်ဆိုမမပါဘူးလားအမတခြားရက်နဲ့တိုက်တာပါလေဤလေးကိုတစ်ပတ်ပြည့်နေကြတော့မလာခွင့်လိုက်မယ်နော်ဤလေးအဲ့တေးကြီးဆိုတော့ပြန်ကုန်တယ်နော်အဲ့ဒါမှဤလေးနဲ့မမလည်းကောင်းကောင်းဝယ်လို့စားလို့ရကြတယ်နော်ဟာမလေးလားမလေးအဲ့ဒါရောက်လို့အမခဏတော့ခေါ်လာမှာနော်ဒီမိုင်းဒီမခဏဆောင်နေတော့နော်ခဏလေးပဲနော်မပြန်လာခဲ့မယ်နော်
ပြည့်ရင်အမသမီးကိုလာခေါ်မယ်လို့ပြောပြီးတပတ်ပြည့်ရဲ့အချိန်မှာအမရောက်မလာခဲ့ဘူးအဲ့ဒီအချိန်မှာသမီးနားလေလိုက်တယ်သမီးထပ်ပြီးရောင်းစားခံလိုက်ရပြီတရုတ်အိမ်မှာသူ့ရဲ့အငားမိန်းမလို့ရောကျွန်တယောက်လို့ရောနေထိုင်နေရတယ်။သမီးမှာကိုဝင်ရှိလာတယ်။အဲ့ဒီအချိန်ထိလဲကျွန်တယောက်ဆက်ဆံခံနေရတော့မယ်။သမီးထွက်ပြေးဖို့အမျိုးမျိုးကြိုးစားခဲ့ပေမဲ့လည်းမအောင်မြင်ခဲ့ဘူး။အဲ့လိုနဲ့သားလေးမွေးပြီး2 ရက်ပြည့်နေမှာပဲ။
不要动，让他赶紧。不要动，让他赶紧。ပြန်စဉ်းစားလိုက်တိုင်းသမီးဘွားငယ်ငယ်ကလေးကလူသားတယောက်ဖြစ်ပြီးကုန်ပစ္စည်းတစ်ခုလိုရောင်းစားခြင်းကိုခံခဲ့ရတယ်။သမီးကလူသားတယောက်ပါကုန်ပစ္စည်းတစ်ခုမဟုတ်ပါဘူး။သမီးလိုမိန်းကလေးတိုင်းလူသားတိုင်းကလည်းရောင်းကုန်ပစ္စည်းတစ်ခုမဟုတ်ပါဘူး။အဲ့တော့ဘယ်တော့မှလူတွေကိုရောင်းစားဖို့မကြိုးစားကြပါနဲ့။သမီးပြောစရာတစ်ခုရှိသေးတယ်။ဟိုးပဲနေနေရတဲ့တရုတ်ပြည်ထဲမှာသမီးကိုယ်တိုင်မွေးထုတ်ခဲ့ရတယ်။သားလေးတယောက်ရှိပါတယ်။ဖြစ်နိုင်ရင်တော့သမီးသားလေးနဲ့ပြန်တွေ့ကျင်သေးတယ်။
That film was also used across Myanmar as an advocacy tool to educate people about human trafficking and sex trafficking, and the protection, the need to protect girls and young women in particular. We're going to move on to something that has a bit of levity, because for anybody that has worked in Myanmar or Burma, you would know that the Burmese have a very distinct sense of sharp humor and sarcasm, and this has been a centerpiece of their culture in many different areas, even in different ethnic areas, as well as the Burma majority culture. And this piece is one of my favorites, which is why I chose it. I hope you enjoyed it as I did. It's called The Special One. It's 7 minutes, and it's by a quite well-known producer, Lam Min U. He's a film director in Myanmar, and it's set in the Sampya fish market in Yangon, which is one of the really busy, noisy, loud, clangy, kind of cacophony of sounds and smells places where people gather every day. And it's based around the local boss, because as many of you might know, if you've ever been to the fish markets or the docks, there's like a kind of manager that is the lord of the manor and oversees the guys that do all the grunt work. So the thing that gets the workers through their day is the banter that they exchange with this manager about football. So we're going to see the special one, and I'd like to also make mention that both the cinematography and the producer were Shan filmmakers. The producer is Sai Kong Kam, and the cinematography was by Sai Kong Kam.
Say what? Oh, yes, guy. Young going. I know how to guy. But I'm not a machine. They will like Nalomia. You never travel Lumia or Nadia Pogum. I don't know what. Don't I Daloa. No one and Nalomia. I give my Daloria to use what one you. Lua, what the food because you see. I don't know about your Polomaji. Yeah, I did a deposit, to know them a little better. I the Bolomona Alama, not very much on Gida, says he. No cinema. I knew Chamia, I knew Chamia Palayo, Javi, Grajama. So idea I'm a pure now. John don't better leave a total Kamia. Tama Tola, train them and I know put food on the Rhino. But Tama Kenya. The lot of Asian and Lombardia.
Chesina with an Anija to now, General Macado. Got out a twilight out, Chessie Guard. Yeah, and Biore.
Boloma show no General Segabro and made a camia. General made it. I Boloma go bumper percent Lona Mono. General Chessie of the Chessia, who the whole photo of Session water. Say no Lomagong, then they go to mining. Come here, Salomia, though, Toilet, the one that Alonia, Silema model. I don't put it out Thailand, Adinia Thailand. I know.
Nida met to be near the Gari, a Chessie the Gari, Majajama over. The Kaja do a dinana, biology, Korea, over 12 years. The Kaja is in Majajum. Majajam, the Kaja, Anna or Gosia, Anna or Nana.
Good job, but you want to know. All right. So she wants to go and Kupinara. You book at home. Also, alone in Madonia, with a Minio, Tanzania, Tejuania, China, Minor, Nino, I don't go and Mina Gundicana. Moyo identity, very what I go to Chile. Yana didn't see there, I didn't see there. I on Simon, very good, blue door, the Almoa, a general Laguzo, the how President Yam, the Ion Luciam, and Rani the Lucy. I want Yana side. I want to know me. I don't know, couldn't put the Kuni, the Orma, the Damid look, I'm going down on the piano. Who goes Seattle when he had a man? Just in the army, going to Juragia. Orma, 2 banana, I'm a little let down. All I'm a Sidoma Golden. Chango of Shiva, he might have told the bomb. Not in my gone, I think on go be a bit in the other. The watch out there, the go there, the dollar, who remember that. The ling on and then the other. Chessie with us, I don't know say as a know they are Chessie a breaker, the Noja Mansity Abbey. The Mansity breaker, which you
အမေသူ့အားလာလို့ဝင်နေရ
သွားလေရမှာကျွန်တော်ချက်စီကိုမြင်အောင်နေတယ်ဟောချက်စီအဝတ်စားပဲကျွန်တော်မြင်နေတာဟုတ်အဲကြောကျွန်တော်ဒီမှာကြောလူရှိတယ်လူပေါင်း30လောက်ရှိတယ်ဒီနေ့အိမ်ဝင်နောက်နေ့ကျရင်အဝဲဝင်မင်းတို့အဲ့တော့သိကြရမလားလက်ခံလားလက်ခံရင်ကျွန်တော်ပတ်စံပေးတယ်ပတ်စံပေးကျွန်တော်တို့ချုပ်ပေးတယ်ခင်ဗျာအဲ့လိုမျိုးရ
မဝင်ရင်ဟောင်းနေမင်းတို့2000ဖြတ်မယ်မန်ယူဝစ်လို့ရှိရင်လည်း4000ဖြတ်မယ်
အသေးမောင်း20ရှိတယ်စကူတင်ကြိုက်တဲ့သေးအပ်ပြီးလို့ရတယ်မန်ယူမပါဘူးအလုပ်ဝင်မန်ယူကြောင်းပြောင်းကျွန်တော်အဲ့လိုတိတ်ကိမကြိုက်တော့တိတ်ကြပြောလာကျွန်တော်အဲ့လိုတိတ်စကားမဖြစ်တော့ကျွန်တော်ရှောင်းဝအဲ့ပြဿနာလုံးဝကြီးသွားတာကောင်းဗျာအဲ့လိုယူတော့ဆန်းဝိုင်း
အိမ်တန်လို့ရှိရင်နဘင်းကန်လာမှာပဲနှစ်စက်တိုက်ပဲအဲ့လိုအမှတ်မကွာပဲနဲ့ကျွန်တော်တို့ကဖလားရတယ်ကျွန်တော်မန်စီးတဲ့အစင်လာရှိရတာ
ဒီဖလားကျင်းတယ်ခင်ဗျာဘာကျွန်တော်ပွဲစဉ်ကြောက်ရှောက်မှာကျွန်တော်နောက်ဆုံးမြာကျွန်တော်ဘယ်အဆင့်မှာဘယ်လူတေးကြမယ်ဘလူအနောင်းကန်မယ်ဆိုတာအဲ့ရစကျွန်တော်တေးချောက်ကြည့်တာခင်ဗျာ
ကျွန်တော်လာဆရာလိုမျိုးနေရာကိုရောက်ခဲ့လို့ရှိရင်ကျွန်တော်မန်စီးအိမ်ကိုချုပ်ပေးမှာပါဒါပေမဲ့ဆရာလိုတော့နှစ်စုံလည်းမချုပ်ခိုင်းပါဘူးကျွန်တော်9စုံတော့ချုပ်ပေးမှာပဲကျွန်တော်ရဲ့လူတွေကျွန်တော်ရဲ့တပည့်တွေအချိန်ပြေးဝေးရမယ်ညအိလည်းဝေးရမယ်မိုးလင်းလည်းဝေးရမယ်ဘာလို့ဘယ်နေရာသွားအလှဝတ်လည်းဝေးပေးရမယ်
film from Tagu, and Tagu Productions is one of the incredible production houses that I mentioned that is currently in Myanmar. They're doing really, really fine work, world-class work. And they also were one of the few production companies that had drone footage of the Myanmar protests when it first began in the streets. And they provided that very high-quality drone footage to many filmmakers. A delightful film, and it just shows you a documentary can actually have you laughing. Next up is a very short, which is part of a series that will actually be all together on the film festival site, but we've just chosen one. It is called What Future? And it is a montage of photographs that's voiced over by a journalist who is sharing the trauma that he's experiencing while he's covering the country and trying to survive, and just amidst the chaos and the incessant violence and the incessant stress. I found it, the festival team found it quite moving. And this is from another collective, a newly formed collective. Again, this is the part of the talent that's really coming out of Myanmar. It's called Visual Rebellion. And Laure, who is from that collective, who helped spearhead it, is with us tonight. And the Myanmar Photo Collective is responsible for this excellent exhibition that's hanging on our walls of the women in the streets of the protests. So we're going to move on now to this short but powerful piece called What Future?
Sorry for my late reply. As you know, it was not easy to communicate because this situation is not good. It was 2 weeks ago, and now so many people were hit by a bomb. Early last night, 2 or 3 bombs was exploded
in the city. I mean, I'm okay. At least I was alive. Right? At least I was alive. I mean, I'm okay. I don't know how long we has had this situation. Every day I want thinking about my future. How long it take and how long we have to wait to end this. Sometimes I was lost my ambition. Sometimes I depressed. Every day we become harder and harder to live, to eat, to sleep. I have no idea how do I live in this country. Sometimes I wish I just go live on the moon alone. But I'm trying to stay strong. If I'm becoming depressed and just think about, I'm okay, I must stay alive. At least I was not dead, I was not get hurt. I'm trying to motivate by my with that.
Short and profound offering from Visual Rebellion, part of a mosaic of shorts that will all be featured in the Burma Spring Benefit Film Festival. And finally, our feature presentation for tonight. We're really very excited to have the Bangkok premiere of this film, Walking Through Darkness. Running time is just over 19 minutes. It is produced by one capital O, not zero, one capital O1 FPS. FPS is a film term for frames per second production. This is a collective of young Burmese filmmakers and visual journalists who formed themselves, all of them having covered the events in their country in the years leading up to the coup as young photojournalists, reporters, videographers, and formed this collective to now produce these films. So this is really an unveiling for them of an offering of their own creation, because they have also supported many of the foreign correspondents covering the events as fixers and auxiliary film teams, but this is solely their work. And this was a co-production with Athan Myanmar, and it's notable to explain to you. Athan gave this small group a very, very, I wouldn't even call it a small budget. I would call it a sub-skeletal budget. And as somebody who works in filmmaking, I know what a struggle it is to produce something with very little resources. But this is truly remarkable that they made this with the amount that they received. And they received this grant from an organization of quite renown in Myanmar called Athan. And for those of you who don't know Athan, the word Athan is a Myanmar word meaning voice. And it was founded in 2018 to promote freedom of expression in Myanmar. And it implements this through research, advocacy, and education to promote this right. But it was founded by someone who has also become quite well known in the Myanmar Spring Revolution, having already been a leading activist previously, the celebrated poet and civil rights leader Maung Saka. He is the currently still the executive director of Athan, and was its co-founder. And he was among the very first to be arrested in defiance of the telecommunications law under the NLD government and spent over 6 months in prison simply because a poem that he had written was deemed to be disrespectful to the president. And after his release, it fueled his activism even further, where he went on to continue to fight not only for freedom of expression, but for internet access in Rakhine State during the conflict there, to speak out on behalf of the Rohingya in a time when it was extremely unpopular to do so, to even mention the word Rohingya in his country. But he would go out in public and in forums and speak on their behalf. So someone, again, of tremendous courage and grit. And so Athan supported the production of this. And this is very apropos for us to be showing here at the Press Club, because it aligns with much of the vision of what the FCCT stands for and what it has long stood for in the many decades as being in the vanguard of disseminating information from the neighboring country of Burma, Myanmar. It follows several journalists, young journalists in Myanmar, as they are documenting first the protests, but then the quickly devolving situation into violence, into what we now see as effectively a state of civil war, where hundreds of thousands have been displaced. But it tracks these journalists to ask their individual stories in a diary form of why they do what they do. I believe you will all be as moved as I was when I saw it. So again, we're really grateful to have the film team here and the Bangkok premiere of Walking Through the Darkness.
He said, "Anna, thing to be an Obama already. The man I get, let's see, dream ya local. I'm out to lobby to Yavare."
Oh, Jama Bana, like another is the daughter, like a dog, I know. Well, Canelo is the daughter, Canada. Canelo, I know Jama, like you.
You know, so you know, you got him as well. You know how. ဘယ်ဌာနကသတင်းထောက်ဖြစ်ပါတယ်ဆိုတဲ့ဟာမျိုးကျွန်တော်ရဲ့ professional နဲ့ပတ်သက်ပြီးတော့ကျွန်တော်လူတိုင်းကိုကျွန်တော်ပြောပြလို့ရနိုင်တယ်။လက်ရှိအာဏာသိမ်းပြီးနောက်ပိုင်းမှာကျွန်တော်ပြောပြလို့မရတော့နောက်ဆုံးပြကျွန်တော်ရက်ကွက်ထဲတော့ကျွန်တော်ပြန်လို့မရတော့အရင်တော့ငါတော့ဘယ်ဌာနမှာလုပ်ခဲ့ပါတယ်ဘသူပါဟဲ့ဆိုပြီးတော့ဟာမျိုးပြောလို့မရတော့ဘူး။ဘာကြောင့်လဲဆိုအရှိမတာတကားကြီးရှိခဲ့ဘူးတဲ့။ဘယ်သူကဘယ်ဌာနအတွက်ဘလို့သတင်းထောက်လုပ်နေပါလဲဆိုရင်နောက်တစ်နေ့ကျရင်ချက်ချင်းဒီစစ်ကောင်စီကလာရောက်ဖမ်းဆီးသွားတာတွေရှိတယ်။စစ်ကောင်စီရဲ့လှည့်ကင်းအဖွဲ့ကနေဖမ်းဆီးခေါ်ဆောင်သွားတဲ့အလွတ်ဓာတ်ပုံသတင်းတောက်2ဦးတည်းကအသက်30ကျော်ရွယ်ကိုစိုးနိုင်ဟာဒီဇင်ဘာလ14ရက်နေ့မနေ့ကစစ်ကြောရေးမှာတည်ဆုံသွားတဲ့အကြောင်းမိသားစုနဲ့နှိစက်သူတွေက RFA ကိုပြောပါတယ်ဆိုတော့အဲ့အနာသိန်းနေဆိုတဲ့စကားကကျွန်တော်တို့မိုးချိုးပြစ်တယ်လို့ဖြစ်တဲ့အပြင်ကျွန်တော်ကိုယ်တိုင်ရုံးရတယ်ပြန်ထွက်လာတယ်ဘယ်သူအားလို့ဘယ်လာမှမသိဘူးငါတို့ဖမ်းခံရမှာလားဟောအနာသိမ့်ဖမ်းလာမယ်ဟိုကျွန်တော်တို့ DVB ဆိုတာဒါဟိုဖမ်းမဲ့စီမဲ့ထဲမှာထိတ်ဆုံးကပါလာတယ်ဘာမှဘာလို့ဘာခံမှမသိပဲနဲ့ကိုကျွန်တော်အိမ်ပြန်လာခဲ့တယ်အဓိကတော့ဒီစစ်အာဏာသိမ်းပြီးနောက်ပိုင်းသတင်းမီဒီယာတွေကိုသူတို့ရွေးချက်ထားပြီးတိုက်ခိုက်လာတဲ့အတွက်သတင်းတောက်တွေဖမ်းခံရတာတွေရှိတယ်ကျွန်တော်တို့ရှိက Data News Agency ကAR တိုင်းခြေဆိုင်သတင်းတောက်တယောက်လည်းဖမ်းခံရတယ်အဲ့တော့ဟိုကျွန်တော်တို့တွေကဒီအလုပ်လုပ်ဖို့အတွက်ကဒီစစ်ဆိုးရရဲ့လက်ကလုပ်မှကျွန်တော်အလုပ်လုပ်လို့ရမယ်အဲ့အတွက်ကျွန်တော်တို့ကဒီလွတ်မြောက်နယ်မြေတို့ခေါ်လို့ရတဲ့တိုင်းဒေသတွေရောက်လာဖက်ဒရယ်ဒီမိုကရေစီတိုက်ပွဲတွင်ကြာဆုံးသောသူရဲကောင်းများအားလေးပြုကျွန်တော်တို့ AR တိုင်းနဲ့လည်းအနည်းဆုံးဖြစ်တဲ့ကရင်ပြည်နယ်ပေါ့နောက်ကြတော့ဟိုဒီပြည်တွင်းစစ်တမိုင်းကြောင်းမှာကြတော့ဒီကရင်တော်လန်ရေးကတကယ်ကိုတက်တန်းရဲ့နောက်ပြီးတော့သူတို့အတွေ့အကြုံရဲ့သူတို့ရှိကိုကျွန်တော်တို့သွားတဲ့အခါမှာကျွန်တော်တို့ ਨੇ ပို့ပြီးတော့နီးစပ်မှုရှိတယ်ဆိုတော့ခံစားချက်ကိုလည်းရတယ်အပါချက်အပါ right ကြည့်ရနော်အဲ့ဒီနေကြည့်ကြည့်လိုက်မယ်2300လောက်စားကြတော့နောက်ပြ
နေမီထိစပ်မှုရလဲဘလောက်မှမဝေးတဲ့ခရီးဖြစ်တဲ့အတွက်ကျွန်တော်တို့ကအနီးဆုံးကိုထွက်လာလီကီကိုဒေတာကိုရောက်လာတော့ဒီသတင်းသမားတယောက်အနေနဲ့ရှော့ရစေတဲ့အကြောင်းအရာတွေကတော့အများကြီးပဲဒါပေမဲ့ဟိုကျွန်တော်တို့သတင်းဌာနအနေနဲ့လည်းတချို့ဒီသတင်းတွေကိုလုံခြုံရေးရဟိုဒီအခြေအနေရဟိုအချက်လက်တိုင်းကိုမထုတ်တာရှိတယ်များသောအားဖြင့်တော့ကျွန်တော်ကတိုင်းနိုင်ငံလုံးကသတင်းတွေကို cover လုပ်တယ်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့တော့ဟိုဒီ data မှာရှိနေတဲ့ဖြစ်စဉ်တော့ကျွန်တော်တို့အားခိုင်အနေနဲ့ပဲထားတယ်ကျွန်တော်တို့ဒီရန်ကုန်မှာကျွန်တော်တို့ဟိုဒီတော်လိုင်းသတင်းတွေစလုပ်နေတဲ့ကလူငယ်တွေကမြို့ပေါ်လူငယ်တွေကဒီလက်နက်ကင်တော်လိုင်းလမ်းစဉ်ကိုလိုက်ဖို့အတွက်လွတ်မြောက်နေမြေတွေသွားတယ်ဆိုတာကျွန်တော်တို့ကအဲ့ဒီမှာတွေကစသိနေရပြီလက်ချင်းမြေတိုင်းပွဲဝင်ဖို့စိတ်ချိန်နေတယ်အကုန်လုံးကိုစွန့်ပြီးတော့မိသားစုတွေအလောက်ကန်ခွန်လန်းတွေကိုစွန့်ပြီးတော့တောထဲကိုရောက်လာတယ်သူတို့တောထဲမှာပဲဒီလိုမျိုးဟိုတော်ရင်စကန်တွေမှာဖြစ်တယ်လို့နေကြတယ်ပင်ပန်းလေ့ကျင့်ကြတယ်
ဒါအဲ့ဒါပြန်တော့ပြန်သွားကြည့်ပဲ
ဒီလိုပြလီကီကောင်မှာစပြီးတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့အိမ်မှာကျွန်တော်ရုံးမှာစရောက်လာပြီးတော့အဲ့လိုမျိုးအချိန်လေးတင်းမှာတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့နောက်တစ်နေ့မှာပဲကျွန်တော်တို့ကရှောင်းနေပေါ့အဲ့အချိန်မှာဒီမှာတိုက်ပွဲရတော့စဖြစ်နေပြီအဲ့ဖြစ်ခါစားမှာတော့သူကလီကီကောင်မှာတရက်နှစ်ရက်ဖြစ်တယ်ဖြစ်ပြီးတော့တိုက်ပွဲကဟိုဘက်ဟိုနည်းနည်းရွှေ့သွားတဲ့ခါမှာကျွန်တော်ကလီကီကောင်ကိုအချိန်လေးကိုပြန်စုံစမ်းတယ်ပေါ့နော်စုံစမ်းတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့ပြန်ဆင်းလာတယ်ဘာဖြစ်လို့လဲဆိုတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့ကတောင်ပေါ်စခန်းနေရွှေ့တဲ့နေရာမှာအဲ့မှာဖုန်းလိုင်းမရအောင်နောက်တစ်ချက်အင်တာနက်မရအောင်ကျွန်တော်တို့သတင်းကန်းနဲ့ပတ်သက်လို့နေ့တင်လုံးအောင်အလုပ်တွေကြတော့အင်တာနက်မရအောင်ဖုန်းမရအောင်ဆိုအဆင်မပြေဘူးအဲ့တော့ကျွန်တော်တို့တွေကဒီတိုက်ပွဲတွေဖြစ်နေတယ်ဆိုတာသိရဲ့ကြားရဲကနေပြီးတော့နည်းနည်းလေးအချိန်လေးကောင်းတဲ့ပုံမှာမူတည်ပြီးတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့လီကီကိုပြန်ဆင်းလာတယ်ဒါပေမဲ့လီကီကိုကတော့ခုနကတော့ဘယ်တယ်ဆိုင်ထားတဲ့နေရာဖြစ်တယ်လို့ကျွန်တော်နေလို့မရဘူးပေါ့နော်နေလို့မရတော့လီကီကိုနဲ့အနီးဆုံးမှာရှိတဲ့မဲဝါခီရွာမှာကျွန်တော်ကသွားနေတာအသက်40နာကတ်လာတော့မှဒီစစ်ဆောင်ရတဲ့အတွေ့အကြုံကိုကျွန်တော်တို့ကစရတော့အဲ့လိုပဲကျွန်တော်တို့တစ်ဖွဲ့လုံးစရတော့ဟိုငကိုကျွန်တော်တို့ကသတင်းတွေထဲမှာဖတ်နေရတဲ့စစ်ပြေးဒုက္ခတွေစစ်ဆောင်ဒုက္ခတွေဆိုတဲ့ဟာကိုကိုယ်တိုင်ခံစားရတာကိုယ်တိုင်အဲ့နေရာကိုရောက်သွားတော့ရောက်တော့ကျွန်တော်တို့အတွက်ကတော့နေ့ရက်တိုင်းမှာအချိန်တိုင်းမှာကျွန်တော်တို့အတွက်ကတော့ဒါဟိုအတွေ့အကြုံသိကြည့်ပဲအဲ့ဒီဟာကိုလည်းကျွန်တော်တို့ကသတင်းသမားအနေနဲ့ရောကြပြဆရာတွေအနေနဲ့ရောအဲ့ဒီဟာကိုကျွန်တော်တို့ကကောင်းကောင်း record လုပ်နိုင်ခဲ့တယ်အနည်းမမရဒီမဝခိမှာတိုက်ပွဲစဖြစ်တဲ့နေ့ကခရစ်စမတ်နေ့အနည်းကျွန်တော်3ယောက်အိတ်ကြတော့အရင်ဆုံးလို့တာကျွန်တော်အဲ့မှာတယောက်နဲ့တယောက်စနောက်အလုပ်တွေလုပ်ပြီးတော့ကျွန်တော်အခန်းရှိမှာကျွန်တော်ပြန်ပြီးတော့ကျွန်တော်ထမင်းကြော်တယ်အီဆိုင်ကမနိုးသေးဘူးကျွန်တော်တို့တော့မှထမင်းကြော်ဝေတော့ဒီဆိုင်ကကိုခြံထားတယ်ဒီကောင်မစားမှာဆိုအိယာထားနောက်ကြရင်မစားမှာဆိုခြံထားပါညာအဲ့လိုပြီးတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့8နာရီမှာကျွန်တော်တို့ကဒီ news meeting ကျွန်တော် online နေလုပ်တယ်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့တော့လုပ်တယ်တနာရီကြော်လောက်ကြာတဲ့အချိန်မှာကျွန်တော်နားကိုလက်နဲ့ကြီးတွေစကြတာဟိုလက်နဲ့ကြီးတယ်တော့နေ့တိုင်းကြားနေရ
ဒီမှာလေရင်နေလာပြီးလေရင်ဒီချားတယ်နော်ဘောင်းနေနဲ့လာပြီးလေရင်
အဲ့ဒီကတော့ထူးကြထပ်ပြီးကြားတဲ့ဟာကအရင်နီးတယ်စာတင်ကျောင်းလဲဆိုတော့အနည်းဆုံးတော့ပေ400လောက်ပေါ့ဆိုကတ်ကြတော့ဟာလန့်သွားဒါပေမဲ့ကျွန်တော်အဲ့အနားကိုလက်နဲ့ကြီး9လုံးလောက်ကြားတဲ့အချိန်မှာကျွန်တော်ဓာတ်ပုံတွေပါရိုက်လိုက်တယ်ရိုက်ပြီးတော့ကျွန်တော်သတင်းကန်းထဲကိုကျွန်တော်သတင်းတွေပို့တယ်သတင်းတွေပို့တယ်ဓာတ်ပုံတွေပို့တယ်ပို့ပြီးတော့အဲ့ချိန်မှာသတင်းကြီးကဇက်တိုက်ကြနေ
ပြောတာ share ပြီးတော့မယ်ဝါခီစကန်ကိုပြောနေပြီးတော့
တိုက်ပွဲပြင်းထန်နေဖြစ်နေပါတယ်အခုဟိုဘက်ကူဖို့အတွက်ခလေးတိုင်ငယ်
Christmas နေ့မှာမဲဝါခီမှာတိုက်ပွဲဖြစ်တယ်12နာရီလောက်မှာအမြောက်120မှာကြာတယ်ကြားတဲ့နေရာမှာအေးဆိုင်ကေရောခုနအုပ်ကြီးရောပွဲချင်းပြီးတည်တယ်ပေါ့ဒါပေမဲ့ကျွန်တော်တို့အဲ့ဒီဟာကို confirm ဖြစ်တာတော့နောက်နေ့26ရက်နေ့မနေ့ကျမှကျွန်တော်သိပြီးတော့ဟုတ်ပြီပေါ့တည်တာတော့တည်ကြသွားပြီပေါ့ကျွန်တော်ဒီသူတို့ body တွေကျွန်တော်တို့ ဘလို့ပြန်ယူမယ်ပေါ့ဘာလို့ဆိုအဲ့ဒါတကယ်တိုက်ပွဲဖြစ်နေနေတာဆိုတော့နောက်9နိုင်လောက်ကြာမှ9နိုင်လောက်ကြာတော့နည်းနည်းအခြေအနေကဒီဘက်ကပြန်ပြီးတော့စိုးမိုးလို့ရတဲ့အနေထားဆိုတော့တွားယူလို့ရတယ်ပေါ့ဒါပေမဲ့အဲ့ဒါအနေရှိသေးတယ်ဆိုတော့တွားယူကြတယ်ပေါ့တွားယူကြတော့ body နှစ်ခုပြန်ရလာပြီးတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့ဟိုရပြီးခြင်းပဲဒီဖလူးလေးတုတ်တန်ပေါ့အဲ့မှာကျွန်တော်ထဲမှာရှိတဲ့လမ်းဘေးနားမှာပဲရှိတဲ့တုတ်တန်မှာအုပ်ကြီးနဲ့ဒီဆိုင်ကင်းတွေကိုကျွန်တော်တခါလေတစ်ပြိုင်နဲ့တချို့ကြတယ်
ဆိုင်ကဒီတိုင်းပြည်အတွက်သူရဲကောင်းတူဖြစ်သည့်အတွက်ရဲဘော်အားလုံးလေးပြုပါသည်အားလုံးလေးပြု
ခဏလေးပဲကျွန်တော်တို့အဲ့ဒီကျွန်တော်လေးကနေဖြတ်ထွက်ရာဘာတော်လေးကနေဖြတ်ထွက်ပြီးသွားကျွန်တော်တို့ပြီးသွားပြီပေါ့ကျွန်တော်လုံခြုံသွားပြီဆိုတော့ခဏလေးအဲ့အချိန်ခဏလေးကိုကြော်လိုက်နိုင်ဟိုအခုချိန်မှကျွန်တော်တငယ်ချင်း3ယောက်ပျော်ပျော်ရွှင်ရွှင်စားစားအောင်ဆက်နေလို့ရအောင်မယ်လို့ကျွန်တော်တွေးတယ်အဲ့ဒီခဏကျကျွန်တော်မေ့ထားသူ့ကိုကျွန်တော်အဲ့သူထုံးစံအတိုင်းပဲသူအေးဆေးဆေးနဲ့အမှနေကြံခဲ့တယ်လို့ပဲကျွန်တော်တွေးထားအခုချိန်ထိသူပြေးသွားရဆိုတော့ဟိုကယုံလို့မရသေးဘူးသူကအိမ်မက်တော့လေသူအဲ့လိုမျိုးအိတ်ကြံခဲ့တယ်လို့ပဲကျွန်တော်တွေးထားဟိုစာရွက်ကလေးတွေမှာကန့်တယ်ဒီဟာဖောက်သွားတာပေါ့အေးဆန်းကြီးကိုဖောက်ပြီးကြောဘွေးထဲမှာကြံခဲ့တာတော်တော်ဒါတော့သူရှိကနောက်ဆုံးခြားကန်ဒီမှာပြန်ပြီးတော့ယူထားတော့ပြကောင်ပေါက်တော့ဒီကောင်ကအငွေပေးတော့မှဒါကတိတယ်တရားတော့ခုနေတဆောင်နေမလျှော့ပါနဲ့ထားလိုက်တော့ငွေတက်ကလေးဒီကိုနန်လေးသူဖြစ်တဲ့ဘက်မှာဒီလိုထားတာအဲ့ဒါကြောင့်ဒီဘက်ကပေါက်တာအဲ့မှာဒီမှာကွက်တီဖြစ်ပါပန်ဆောက်တော့တိန်းသုံးလောက်ရှိရဲ့9,596ချက်နောက်ဆုံးလက်ချက်ဖလဲတော်တော့တကယ်တော့လေဟိုအစန်းကြီးကြားတယ်ပေါ့နော်ဒါပေမဲ့အစန်းကြီးလိုပဲဒီမြန်မာနိုင်ငံမှာစစ်အာဏာသိမ်းပြီးတဲ့နောက်ပိုင်းမှာတကယ်အလုံးလုံးနေကြတဲ့သတင်းတောက်တွေတကယ်ကိုလူမသိသူမသိနဲ့ဒုက္ခရောက်သွားတဲ့သူတွေလည်းအများကြီးပဲဟိုပြောရရင်တော့သတင်းတောက်လို့တောင်မဟုတ်ဘဲနဲ့ freelance အနေနဲ့ဒီသတင်းလုပ်ရင်းနဲ့ဟိုဖန်ဆီးခံနှိပ်စက်ခံနေရတဲ့စင်မပေါက်တဲ့သူတွေလည်းအများကြီးရှိတယ်
ကျွန်တော်တို့ကြောဘွေးတွေစစ်တယ်ဂျပန်ရကာဆိုရင်ဒါဖုန်းတွေကိုစစ်တဲ့အခြေအနေဖြစ်တဲ့အတွက်ဟိုအရင်အခြေအနေလို့မဟုတ်တော့ဘူးဗျာကျွန်တော်တို့မီဒီယာသမားဆိုရင်လည်းကင်မရာတွေပါမယ်လို့အဲ့လိုဘာမှယူလို့မရတဲ့အတွက်ကျွန်တော်တို့ဖုန်းတွေကိုအဓိကထားပြီးသုံးပြရတဲ့အတွက်ကျွန်တော်ဖုန်းတွေကိုအထူးသတိထားလာတယ်ဖုန်းထဲမှာကို report လုပ်ထားတဲ့ဓာတ်ပုံပဲဖြစ်ဖြစ်ဗီဒီယိုပဲဖြစ်ဖြစ်ဒါတွေကိုတွေ့ပြီးတော့သူတို့ကအချိန်ပြီးကျွန်တော်တို့ဖန်ဆီးနိုင်တဲ့အတွက်ကျွန်တော်ဖုန်းထဲမှာဆိုရင်လည်းအများတန်းဟိုသတိထားရတယ်ပေါ့နော်ကိုတစ်ခု report တစ်ခုလုပ်ပြီးတိုင်းကိစ္စတစ်ခုကိုရိုက်ပြီးတိုင်းဗီဒီယိုရိုက်ပြီးသားဖြစ်ဖြစ်ဓာတ်ပုံရိုက်ပြီးသားဖြစ်အဲ့ဒါတွေကိုချက်ချင်းကိုကျွန်တော်သိမ်းဆီးရတာတွေပို့ပြီးတော့လှုပ်လာရတာတွေရှိတယ်ပြီးတော့ကျွန်တော်ချက်ချင်းရိုက်သွားပြီးသွားလို့ရှိရင်လည်းပြန်မရောက်ချင်းကျွန်တော်လမ်းမှာဆိုရင်ချိန်ကြီးစစ်ဆေးခံရနိုင်တယ်လေအဲ့ဒီဗီဒီယိုကျွန်တော်တို့ report လုပ်လာတဲ့ဟာမျိုးကို အချိန်မျိုးစစ်စေးကန်တဲ့အခြေအနေရရင်ကင်းတော့ဆိုကျွန်တော်ပုံစံမျိုးစုံနဲ့ကျွန်တော်တို့နော်ဟိုဓာတ်ထဲမှာကျွန်တော်လှုပ်လာဟိုတင်းစီတာပဲဖြစ်စေဖွက်ထားတာပဲဖြစ်စေအချိန်ကြီးပို့ချားတဲ့နေရာကိုပေါ့နော်လှုပ်ပို့လိုက်တာပဲဖြစ်စေအဲ့အမျိုးတွေအများကြီးပြင်ဆင်ထားတာရှိတယ်ဗျဒီ
လောက်တွေကရှောင်းရင်းတိန်ရင်ပြေးလွှိုင်းနဲ့လုပ်တွေလုပ်နေကြတယ်ဒါသိကြတယ်အဲ့လူတွေကိုကျွန်တော်တို့ကပို့ပြီးတော့လေးစားတယ်တကယ်လေးစားသူတို့ကအတွင်းထဲမှာဗျတကယ်အန်ဒီရဲ့ဇုံထဲမှာပြေးလွှားပြီးတော့တကယ်အခက်အခဲပေါင်းများစွာကျွန်တော်မှန်းလို့မရတဲ့အခက်အခဲပေါင်းများစွာကြားထဲမှာသူတို့လှုပ်နေတာသူတို့ကိုကျွန်တော်တို့အရင်ဆုံးလေးစားရလိမ့်မယ်ကျွန်တော်တို့ကျေးဇူးလက်တင်ကြောင်ပြောရလိမ့်မယ်ကြိုက်သည်ဖြစ်စေနေရာပေးသည်ဖြစ်စေနေရာမပေးသည်ဖြစ်စေ journalist ဒီအရေးကြီးတဲ့အခန်းကဏ္ဍမှာပါတယ်အဲ့တော့ journalist ကသူ့အလုပ်ကိုသူလုပ်ကိုလုပ်ခွင့်ရှိကိုရှိရဒါပဲ
ကျွန်တော်ကအဖမ်းခံပြီးတော့ပြန်လည်လွတ်မြောက်လာတဲ့ထဲကဓာတ်ပုံသတင်းတောက်တယောက်ဖြစ်တယ်ဒီလိုအရေးပါနေတဲ့ကာလမှာသတင်းတောက်တွေကမြေပြင်မှာသတင်းရယူခွင့်ကိုယ်တိုင်သတင်းဆင်းပြီးတော့ရယူခွင့်ဆုံးရှုံးနေကြတယ်ဒီဆုံးရှုံးနေကြတဲ့အထဲမှာမှဒီလိုမြေပြင်မှာဆင်းရိုက်နေတဲ့သတင်းတောက်တွေရှိတယ်ဒီသတင်းတောက်တွေကပဲဟိုသတင်းယူရင်းနဲ့ပဲအဖမ်းခံလိုက်ရတာမျိုးရှိရထောင်ထဲမှာလည်းကျွန်တော်နဲ့အတူတူဖမ်းခံရတဲ့အထဲကကြံရှိခဲ့တဲ့သတင်းတောက်တွေရှိရဲဒီအကြမ်းဖက်စစ်ကောင်စီအနေနဲ့ဒီပြည်သူတွေရဲ့ပြည်သူတွေကြားထဲမှာလွတ်လပ်စွာသတင်းရယူခွင့်တွေပိတ်ပင်ထားရရှိရဲဟိုသူတို့ဘက်ကမလိုက်ဖဲနဲ့ဒီဟိုတမတ်ရှိစွာရက်တည်နေတဲ့မီဒီယာမျိုးတွေဆိုရင်သူတို့ဘက်ကပိတ်ပင်တာမျိုးရှိရဲဟိုဒီလိုပိတ်ပင်ပြီးတော့ပဲဟိုလူလူကိုသတင်းအမှောင်ချဖို့စူးစမ်းလေးရှိတာဟိုအရင်အာဏာရှင်တွေလက်ထက်တွေကပေါ့အခုချိန်အထိကိုဒီသတင်းလွတ်လပ်စွာသတင်းရယူခွင့်ကိုပိတ်ပင်ထားတာကတော့ဟိုအမြဲတမ်းပိတ်ပင်လေးရှိတယ်
70မြန်မာနောက်နဲ့ခေတ်သစ်သတင်းဌာနတွေကိုထုတ်ဝေခွင့်ပိတ်သိမ်းတဲ့အကြောင်းမနေ့ကကြေညာလိုက်တာဖြစ်ပါတယ်
ရုံးကလည်းပိတ်ထားလိုက်ပြီးတော့စိတ်ဘူးဆုံးကတော့ပြောရရင်တော့ငါတို့အလုပ်ကိုငါတို့ဘယ်လိုဆက်လုပ်ကြမလဲဆိုတာပဲဒါပေမဲ့ကျွန်တော်အတွေ့အကြုံရပါကျွန်တော်တို့ကတော့အတွေ့အကြုံရဘယ်ကိစ္စမဆိုဘယ်အခြေအနေမျိုးမှမဆိုကျွန်တော်တို့အလုပ်ကိုကျွန်တော်ရအောင်လုပ်မယ်ဆိုတဲ့စိတ်ကကျွန်တော်မှရှိပြီးသားဘယ်အခြေအနေမျိုးမှမဆိုရအောင်ငါတို့အလုပ်ကိုသတင်းတော့ကိုရအောင်လုပ်မယ်ဒါပေမဲ့ခက်တာရုံးကဘာမှမလုပ်ဖို့တားတာ DVB ကို license သိမ်းလိုက်ပါပြီဆိုတဲ့နေ့မှာကျွန်တော်ဘာလုပ်လို့မရတော့ဆိုတော့ဟိုပြောရရင်နိုင်မဲရတော့ဗျာကိုယ့်အလုပ်ကိုမလုပ်ရမှာအကြောက်ဆုံးပဲ
ကျွန်တော်ဒီထောင်ကနေထွက်လာပြီးတော့ဒီလိုမျိုးအနောက်ကနေ live နေရာမျိုးတွေရှိရဲဒါမဲ့လေဟိုမြေပြင်ကိုကိုယ်တိုင်သတင်းရယူခွင့်မရှိတော့ပေမဲ့ဟိုအထက်ကနေပြီးတော့ဒီသတင်းပေးပို့တဲ့သူတွေစီကနေပြီးတော့သတင်းတွေပြန်တင်ပေးတာသတင်းတွေပြန်လိုက်တာမျိုးတွေရှိရဲပြီးတော့ဒီဟိုဘန်စီခံရတဲ့အကြောင်းတွေနဲ့ပတ်သက်ပြီးတော့ story ရေးဖြစ်တယ်ဟိုအဲ့လိုရေးရဲ့အခါမှာကျွန်တော်ဒီအရင်ကသုံးခဲ့တဲ့နာမည်ကိုမသုံးဘူးကျွန်တော်နာမည်ကိုလည်းမသုံးဘူးတခြားဒီကလောင်နာမည်တစ်ခုနဲ့ပဲ story ရေးဖြစ်တယ်ပေါ့အဲ့လိုရေးရဲ့နေရာမှာဟိုနည်းနည်းတချို့အရာတွေသူတို့ဒီလိုက်တဲ့အခါမှာတိုက်ဆိုင်သွားတာမျိုးရှိပြီးတော့ဟိုကိုဘယ်သူလဲဆိုတာမျိုးကိုနောက်ရောက်ခံနိုင်သွားတဲ့အချိန်မှာကျတော့ဟိုမလုံခြုံတော့ဘူးဟိုဘလို့မှဟိုဒီလွတ်မြောက်လာတဲ့သူတွေကိုလည်းပြန်ဖမ်းဆီးနေတာမျိုးတွေရှိတယ်အဲဒီလိုမျိုးရှိလာတဲ့အတွက်ကြောင့်မလို့ဟိုနောက်ထပ်အဲ့လိုပို့ပြီးတော့စောင့်ကြည့်လာတဲ့အခါမှာကျွန်တော်အနေနဲ့ဒီလွတ်မြောက်နေမျိုးကိုလာခဲ့ဖို့ဆုံးဖြတ်လိုက်တယ်
ကျမကိုယ်တိုင်အရင်တော့လိုမျိုးပဲကင်မရာနဲ့ tripod နဲ့သွားပြီးတော့ interview လုပ်ချင်တယ်မြေပြင်ပေါ်မှာကိုယ်တိုင်သွားပြီးတော့သတင်းယူချင်တယ်အဲ့ဒီဘဝကိုကျမပြန်လို့ချင်တယ်သတင်းတောက်နေနေဆိုရင်တော့ကျမတို့လာစားဘလို့ပဲရဘလို့ပဲဖြစ်ဖြစ်ကျမတို့ကဒီလုပ်ကိုပဲလုပ်တာဒီလုပ်ရတာပြောတာကင်မရာနဲ့ရိုက်နေရတာကိုပြောတာဖြစ်တဲ့အတွက်ကျမတို့ကိုယ်တိုင်သွားပြီးတော့ကင်မရာတစ်လုံး tripod တစ်ခုနဲ့သွားပြီးတော့ကိုယ်တိုင်သတင်းရယူတဲ့ဘဝကိုကျမလိုချင်တယ်
အာဏာသိမ်းပြီးတဲ့အခါမှာလည်းကျွန်တော်ကဘယ်လိုလုပ်မယ်ဆိုတာကျွန်တော်တို့ကိုဟို စီစဉ်ထားတဲ့အစီအစဉ်တိုင်းပဲကျွန်တော်ဆက်လုပ်ခဲ့တယ်အဲ့ဒီတော့ကျွန်တော်အာနာသိန်းတဲ့နေ့တွေစပြီးတော့ကျွန်တော်သတင်းတင်ဆက်တာတွေကိုကျွန်တော်တို့တရက်မှမရက်ခဲ့ဘူးနောက်ဆုံးကျွန်တော်တို့ဒီလေးကီကောင်မှာတိုက်ပွဲဖြစ်လို့ကျွန်တော်တို့အဖွဲ့တွေပြင်းနေရသည့်တိုင်အောင်ဒီသတင်းတင်ဆက်တာတွေမရအောင်လို့ကျွန်တော်တို့အစီအစဉ်တွေအစီအမံတွေကျွန်တော်တို့ကplan A တွေ B တွေရှိတယ်အဲ့လိုမျိုးဆိုတဲ့အခါမှာကျွန်တော်တို့ကခုနလိုမျိုးပေါ့ဘာလို့ဒီဘက်ကိုပြေးလာလဲလို့ဆုံးဖြတ်တဲ့အခါမှာကျွန်တော်တို့အခု DNA ဆိုလဲဒီစစ်တပ်ကပိတ်လိုက်တဲ့မီဒီယာ9ခုထဲမှာကျွန်တော်တို့ကတခုအပါဝင်
ပြည်စီချင်းစီရဲ့စက်တင်ဘာ24ရက်ည9:00 နာရီသတင်းတွေကိုတင်ဆက်ပေးတော့မှာပါနောက်ဆုံးရရှိထားတဲ့ပြည်တွင်းသတင်းတွေကိုဦးဆုံးတင်ဆက်ပေးသွားပါမယ်
ကျွန်တော်တငယ်ချင်းမလို့ကျွန်တော်မျက်စိရှိမှာဖြစ်လို့ SNK ကိုကျွန်တော်တို့ကပို့ပြီးတော့ထိထိခိုက်ခိုက်ဖြစ်ရတယ်ဆိုပေမဲ့ကျန်တဲ့သူတွေနဲ့ရှင်တော့လေဒါကပို့ပြီးတော့ထူးခြားတဲ့ဖြစ်စဉ်တော့မဟုတ်ဘူးဒီအာဏာသိမ်းပြီးနောက်ပိုင်းကလေးကစပြီးတော့မြန်မာနိုင်ငံမှာဒီသတင်းလွတ်လပ်ခွင့်နဲ့ပတ်သက်လို့ပြီးတော့ပဲဖြစ်ဒီလူခွင့်နဲ့ပတ်သက်ပြီးတော့ပဲဖြစ်နိုင်ငံလုံးအကုန်လုံးဒုက္ခရောက်ကြတာ။အဲ့တော့ဒီဒုက္ခတွေကြားထဲမှာတော့ SNK ကဒုက္ခတစ်ခုပဲပျက်စီးမှုတစ်ခုပဲနောက်ပြီးတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့ဥညွှန်ရတဲ့အာဇာနည်တစ်ခုပဲလို့ပဲကျွန်တော်ပြောချင်တယ်။ကျန်တဲ့ SNK လိုမျိုးပဲအလုပ်အခုချိန်ထိလဲရန်ကုန်မှာဒီအပန်းခံမှန်သိတယ်အသက်ခံမှန်သိတယ်အာဏာရှင်ကိုဆန့်ကျင်ပြီးတော့အာဏာရှင်ဆန့်ကျင်တယ်ဆိုတဲ့နေရာမှာလဲခုနကတော့လက်နက်ကင်တာလဲဖြစ်မယ်ဒီလက်နက်မကင်မဲနဲ့ငြိမ်းချမ်းစွာနဲ့ဆန္ဒပြတာလဲဖြစ်မယ်သတင်းအလုပ်ကိုလုပ်ရင်းနဲ့စန့်ကျင်နေတာလည်းဖြစ်မယ်အကုန်လုံးကတော့ကျွန်တော်အကုန်လုံးအတူတူရှိတယ်အဲ့ဒီထက်မှSNKကတယောက်အပါဖြစ်တယ်
Before I hand back to Gwen, I just wanted to further acknowledge everyone who was involved in that film because as a filmmaker myself, I often say when people say something about a film that I have directed that I don't make the films, a team makes the films. And with us as well tonight, they won't be on the panel, but I wanted them to stand up and be acknowledged by all of you is part of the team here, Sri K.A. Yamon, the editors, Botetun, are you in the house? Thierry, please all stand up and get some accolades, well deserved. Bravo to all of you. And I will hand back over to Gwen.
Thanks very much, Jeannie, and I think I'm speaking for all of us when I say that that was really an outstanding selection of films that, you know, took us through the full gamut of emotions, even highlighted that kind of black but kind of such uplifting humour that comes in the middle of all that darkness, as well as, you know, the kind of heartrending sadness of that courage and bravery we see on display in those films. So there's a lot more like that on the in the festival that's carrying on online till the 13th. But I think now we'd like to have a bit of a talk with the filmmakers. I'd like to ask Aung Naing Soe and from one of the characters in the film, sorry, and Jeannie, to come up so we can have a discussion. Jeannie, are you joining us? Or, hi. So, I'm not sure, are we waiting for Jeannie? I think she's disappeared, so I think we'll start. Well, just to kick it all off, Yewin Tu, you are one of the main characters in the film. Aung Naing Soe, you and your team put this whole thing together. I think you've made the film for all journalists, all Myanmar journalists actually, and highlighting some of the risks. Can you maybe tell us about the circumstances that you thought of making this film and how the difficulties, the challenges of making that, and the footage which you obviously have got from both inside and outside? Maybe tell us a little bit more about it and when you started making it. Because you brought it up right to Lake Ko attack, which was Christmas Eve, and I presume you were working on that film up till the very last minute, knowing you. So please tell us a little more about that.
Sure. Well, thanks everyone for coming. My name is Aung Naing Soe, so you can all call me Aung. I'm a freelance journalist.
Closer into the mic.
Sure. Well, so how do I start? Well, actually, we were in touch with ATAN. ATAN is an organization working on free speech in Myanmar since many years ago. And it is founded by my close friend, Maung Saungkha. He is a poet, and he is now in the armed resistance. He is in the front line fighting. You know, like this moment has turned a poet into a rebel fighter. You know, so Maung Saungkha, if you are watching, I miss you, man. Like it's and yeah, like this is the assignment from ATAN. But we were assigned in 2020 something, and then coup happened. We had to postpone it, and then we had a meeting with ATAN again, and they were like, "Oh, okay, let's do a documentary about journalists," you know. But the budget was very small. But later, I discussed with my team, and I had an idea that, okay, like we are the journalists, we're the storytellers, but we still need to talk about our stories, you know. Like sometimes we've been forgetting to tell our own stories, you know. So that was the idea. And at the time, I was like, how to say? No, I was covering Myanmar coup until the first week of April, and then I got to Bangkok. So I was a bit of guilty, you know, because I have my apartment in Bangkok. I'm living a good life, you know, comparing to my colleagues who were remain in safe house. So I was a bit guilty. I was not happy, you know. And then I found out that there are many of my colleagues taking risks, you know, risking their lives, covering stories in the city and in the jungle, like we went to here, and also many people in Lake or war zone, you know. And the other drama is that like they are like very little paid, you know, like their salaries are too low. So I feel that, okay, we have to talk about their stories, and then we develop, you know, to reach out to people, you know, who covered in the front line in the jungle, and then we met Yewin in August, right? Yeah. Yeah, so that was the very first interview. And also my sister, she put me in touch with her friend who was a photographer. He got arrested. There was a guy in the long hair. So he was just 21-year-old, like really young boy. He was taking some pictures of the protest. And then I met another female journalist. You know, she has her two sons. And she was threatened, she was followed, so she had to run away. So we were looking for characters. So at the time, the biggest challenge to me was that there are many good stories. There are many good characters. You know, there are many Myanmar journalists taking risks. You know, like walking in the front line. So I had to choose. Like, I mean, these 5 people, they're not the only character with the best stories. There are many other people who has similar stories, who are still taking the same risks every single day, you know. Like, there are many of my friends still remain in Yangon, in Myanmar, even in Central Burma, they're still walking every day, you know. They're like, oh, I cannot come, I still like to remain in Myanmar, you know, I still like to experience, you know. I really like respect and appreciate my friends. And those friends provided footage from, you know, armed resistance training and the front line to us, and that has been used in this film.
Right. Thanks. That gives us an idea of where you're coming from. Ye-Win too, I think you summed up some of the sentiment that came through very strongly in the film amongst these journalists about, you know, the point being you're not doing it for the money, but not only are you not doing it really for the money because there's not much money or none, but you were saying that you felt useless, you couldn't do anything if you can't work. So how much did that film convey some of those thoughts that obviously is motivating you and all those colleagues?
Yeah. To tell the stories about all the journalists in Burma is like quite, as he said, many stories that tragedies, you know, everywhere. I really respect Burmese journalists who are still trying to walk in the field, on the street of Rangoon, Mandalay, and other cities. I had to run. I had to run because I got no choice. When he asked about me, I was in the jungle of KNU. So I didn't know how long do I have to stay in the jungle, because I have no idea, because my boss, editor-in-chief, he just called me and he asked me to leave Rangoon as soon as possible. And the first, our mission was to reopen our office in Chiang Mai, because I moved back to Burma in 2016 from Chiang Mai office. I was working for DVB for 11 years now. So I've been busy, very busy in the jungle too. I couldn't stop my job as a journalist. No one can stop what I'm doing. Even my boss, he called me and when the first day they coup, on the first day of February, Burmese military, they unplugged our TV channel from the main station. So we're just like totally black out. So we didn't know what to do. They just turned off our TV channel. So I went to the office around like 7 in the morning, and no one knows what's gonna do, what we have to do, and everyone's decided to leave this office as soon as possible, because they will be coming. We know it. That's how they roll all the time. You know, Burmese military, they coup in Burma. We know what they do all the time. So they cut all the news sources, like TV channels, media stations. They arrest journalists. That's how they roll all the time since before I was born. So I know it very well. So we acknowledge that we have to leave the office as soon as possible before they came. So we just grab our stuff, very important stuff, hard drives, and very important papers. So we just disappear from the office. And we had no clear instruction or from the management, from my DVB channel. So I had no idea what to do. So I was at that time, my boss, CEO, he was in Oslo, Norway. So I called him, what I have to do. And he said, just don't do nothing, because your face was on TV all the time. So very obvious, I can't hide. So management and the editorials, they didn't let us do our job.
So what did you do?
I had to wait. So for the first day on February 6th, so in Rangoon, like most of young female activists, gather ethnic people's groups and then workers in Rangoon, they started demonstration in Rangoon on the 6th of February, which means 6 days after the coup. So I went there and I couldn't do my job because I've got a command from my editor, don't do nothing. Just film by your mobile phone, on your mobile phone. I'm a presenter, I'm a host. I'm the guy who ran on the street and whatever happened in Burma, I always go there. I'm there and I always report from where I am, what is going on in Burma. So this time I couldn't do my job, so I complained my editor-in-chief. And on the 7th of February, and so he said, okay, you're gonna risk your life or you're gonna risk everything? You wanna really wanna do that? So I can't stop you, so just do it. So I started reproducing my program, weekly program. I've got weekly program. So I produced my program on 8th of February. So I started producing my program. So my program is
covering the event, so news program.
Yeah, news. It's related to news, actually, like in-depth reporting, because I've got 30 minutes of airtime. So I've got my own program. So I produce, asking a lot of people on the street of Rangoon. I went to most of the biggest protests in Rangoon, and sometimes I had to run from the police. They shot, and they targeted journalists to arrest. So at that time, I walked on the street of Rangoon, and finally they revoked our license, our TV channel license. So revoke license on the March of 8. So at that time I noticed that I had to stop what I've been doing on the street of Rangoon, because most of the journalists they try to stay low profile, and they just use their mobile phone, as in the film that he shot.
So this film picks you up in the jungle, really, once you've gone and you're in the jungle.
So I had no choice. Me and my team, we got no choice. Because we are not making news, we produce documentaries program. So yeah, I got no choice. I had to flee Rangoon as soon as possible. So I fled Rangoon in the March of 13 March. And then I arrived in the jungle of a KNU 2 days later. So I was in the jungle for 6 months. But I didn't stop producing. I produced many programs, and I interview via Skype or Zoom application. So I produce. But someone said in the film, from the Delta News, I think, he said we couldn't produce local news because he just kept those files as an archive, right? So when I was in KNU jungle, I couldn't really produce what is going on there. I saw many stories there, but I couldn't produce because they don't really like. So I produced from different states. I produced the stories from Karenni. I produced the stories from Kachin state, something like that. So so
well, I think
here.
Yeah, what's highlighted, I think, in your focus on Aung Naing Soe on the area, is that you're seeing so many People's Defence Force who have come from the cities and crossed the line. They're fighting, but also you're showing a lot of journalists. Well, a lot. I presume there are a lot actually, who actually stay with their role of covering rather than taking up a gun or joining the forces.
Yeah,
so
but we can't.
You still see yourself as journalists covering rather than being part of the.
Yeah. As a journalist, I can't hold a gun, or I can't fight back. So I have camera and I have my microphone. I have my crew, so I can produce all the stories just like him. We've got many stories. In Burma,
Right.
think about it, many
So
stories.
How do you see that dividing line, Aung Naing Soe? Like, you know, you've been looking at the whole situation and covering both the people involved in all sides. And
yeah, like I said,
can you speak closer?
Sure. So this coup has turned a poet into a rebellious fighter. You know, of course, this also turned many journalists into a armed resistance fighter. You know, I have some of my close friends. They're in the jungle. They're in the front line. They also have their camera and they also have their guns. You know, because they cannot avoid it. You know, they are like, I mean, if I weighed like half of the current weight, I would be probably in the jungle too, you know. No, seriously, like, so many of my friends decided to go there, of course, including the journalists. And they have been taking photos, they have been taking videos, you know, and they have been sharing stories to us. So we are like, we get some information from them, so we can produce stories. We can cover the stories because of their help. Because they are the storytellers. You know, they are the storytellers. But now they have to hold guns. They have to fight against this military. There's no other option. So that's why they are there. And I truly miss my friend. I really want all of my friends back to be in Yangon. Mm-hmm. Like, we will all cover the protest or whatever together in the street, and then we'll have tea together, or like we will have beer together at 19th Street, right? Like, yeah. So this is what we really miss. So everyone in Myanmar has been doing something related to this fight. So of course, armed resistance also like not avoidable.
So what then was your overall real aim, the bottom line aim of this film? What were you most trying to bring out? It wasn't just a film about journalists, it was a message.
Sure. I mean, to be honest, I don't really have a message, but I'm just being like, so being honest, you know. I mean, please take whatever you feel, you know, but this is the reality. Like, this is what's happening. Like, this is the reality. So yeah, I mean, I'll be glad if you feel something, you know, after watching this film, because this film represent, like, I think this film please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this film represent like the whole Myanmar journalist community. Like, everyone has been taking risks, you know. It's like, this is about so I'm thinking about like resilience, you know, like the resilience work that we have been doing. I mean, not just me, like we as Myanmar journalists, like collectively. So regardless of how military stop everything, you know, like internet shut down, like Koya Windu said, you know, they plug off the DVB, you know, but people still keep going. They cannot stop us. Like, they cannot stop people. Like, there are still people inside Myanmar. Maybe that would be my message. There are still people inside Myanmar. They're doing anything they can because this action of the coup is unacceptable. Yeah, I think maybe that would be my message. Like, that's the first time I've been thinking that, okay, what's the message?
Right, yeah, no, sorry. That was
so sorry about that.
Difficult question. Okay, I'd just like to throw this open to the floor if anyone has a question, but before that, turn to Jeannie, who actually is responsible partly for this evening and has, as a co-director of this remarkable film festival, Jeannie, you saw a lot of films in curating and choosing. So I'd like to know what in particular spoke to you about amongst all the, I mean, there are so many films now in the last year that have appeared since the coup. So what spoke to you about this in particular? Also, I know you're a journalist yourself, so
this film in particular.
Yeah.
The curation of the festival was no small feat, because we had many submissions.
Do you know how many? Did you?
There were. I mean, we also sought submissions from filmmakers that we knew, and we put out a call, and it was, you know, several hundred submissions. but we proactively sought out Burmese filmmakers to make sure that we had a forum that was really highlighting the work being produced by Burmese about Burma. Because as I mentioned earlier, I think it's very important that journalists and filmmakers step back sometimes and give space and give agency to the media and to the filmmakers from these countries who have the capability and the vision and insights that we will never have, and to give them that space to also be seen, and which is why we wanted to have this program here tonight. Unfortunately, there were quite a number of really excellent films where the filmmakers wanted to be in the festival, but simply from security reasons, they had to pull out. They actually said, yes, we would love to be part of this, and then in the end, we had to pull the plug for their own security because many of them still remain inside the country. I wanted to, before I turn to Aung Naing Soe's team's film, to also mention again Tagu with the production company that I had cited earlier. They have, I think, 5 films in the festival, and one of our new additions is something that I know many of you would enjoy. It's called No Laughing Matter, and it's about the history of satire and comics and humor in Burma, and I would highly recommend that. It's on our homepage under newly added. But there are excellent films by non-Burmese, by foreign filmmakers, some really beautiful documentaries as well as dramatic films, and we also have some animation. But I think the reason that we really wanted to add 101 frames per second production as well as Laura's Visual Rebellion is because it was something that was produced since the coup and produced by Burmese. And this particular subject, of course, resonates because filmmakers intersect somewhat with journalists in, you know, telling stories, but in a different format where we have the breadth and scope to go deeper. And I think this is, I wouldn't have thought of a better team to make it about Myanmar media than Myanmar journalists. So I really, again, salute all of your team.
Right, thanks.
I think Aung Naing Soe wanted to, before we went to questions, he wanted to read out the poem at the end of the film because he felt perhaps it wasn't digested fully with the credits, and he wanted to just share that before we went to the Q&A.
Thank you. Aung has 2 friends. One is a poet, and the other is a journalist, Soya, who is the main character in the film. And there was the guy who was in the kitchen together with Soya. His name is Amon. They both wrote poems, but we chose a poem from Soya, who is the guy who we interviewed in the film. So this is like a piece, like a small part of the poem that he wrote. And of course, it is also translated to English for this film. And I want to recite about it. The reason is that there is a quote in the documentary that Soya has said, which is like, he and his team has documented these events as journalists and also as poets. You know, like this is really beautiful and powerful. You know, my point is that like we need more poets in all kind of field, right? Journalism or politics or whatever, you know. But I'm happy that, you know, poets are always around us, you know. Like I said, my close friend Mao Songkha, you know, who is now in the armed resistance, you know. So that's why I like to recite this piece. So first I'm gonna read in English. So the title of the poem is The Dinner in the Wood. It's like, you know, Soya was buried in the, Aung was buried in the wood, you know, like they had to leave him. So they even left like a, you know, small headband on the grave as a memory, you know. So this is part of the poem. The layer between life and death is so thin that I'm not sure whether it is I who died now or it is you who are alive now. The broken pieces of metal pierce your body, your laptop, your backpack, and your jeans tan-ups. And I happened to click my tongue several times. So yeah, translated by Kesuta. I also want to recite it in Burmese. Tira ne shena aloa yan pa lo no aku te dwara nga la aku shin nida min la ma kwai pya wu. Tatuza min khana ko phao, jaw bo ai ko phao, min laptop li ko phao, jin maung mi alai li ko phao, tauk phe akha kha khaut mi ye. So yeah. Thanks everyone. So please feel free to ask any questions.
Very powerful. Thank you very much. Any questions, please just go to the microphone. If you have anything you want to ask the filmmakers or about the festival, and please identify yourself before asking the question. I think we've got a question. Thank you. Is that microphone okay for you? Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Good evening. I'm Jacqueline Degerman. I live in France, in a small town, and my question has to do with Amnesty International. But before that, I want to let the speakers know that I was very impressed by what they're trying to do in these difficult circumstances. I worked in Eastern Shan State for a year, about 25 years ago. I was directing a program to help with HIV prevention in the state at the time. And I gathered a lot of information on the conditions in Shan State at the time, but I was very lucky because the Myanmar government left me alone, essentially, and I had a lot of help from the Eastern Shan State Army. But irrespective of that, I mean, this is the reason why I'm so interested in Myanmar right now. And the first film brought back many emotional memories about when we were trying to help young prostitutes in the Tachi Lake area to protect themselves against HIV and prolong their lives and their health. My question about Amnesty International has to do with where I live. I live in a small town in the Mediterranean, and I'm in touch with a number of people who try to keep up with what's going on in the world. In particular, one of them is a member of Amnesty International, and what I got from talking to her is that so far, in France at least, the Amnesty Bureau or group has put the stress on the Rohingyas, so they know all about those, but over the last year or so, there doesn't seem to have been any information about what's been happening in Burma right now. So they know about the displacements of the Rohingyas, but they don't know that the coup has added another 400,000 displaced persons. So my question is essentially, what's Amnesty International doing, how they get the information, and how they disseminate it in other countries? Thank you.
Well, I think that's a question you should put to Amnesty International, I suppose. But would any of you like to comment on the point about?
I would just encourage you, perhaps when you return home or from here, to connect with a really excellent long-term support organization called Info Burmese. They're Info Burmese. They're based in Paris, and they have been working on Burma for many decades, and they collaborate with Amnesty International in France. And last year, during the midpoint of the coup, they had a very large event in Paris, a public event, where they actually screened a documentary film and had speakers. So I know that Amnesty is doing things, but I would encourage you to reach out to Info Burmese, and I can give you their contact after the panel, of course.
Thanks, Jeannie. So if there's nobody else, here's one. Oh my God, you only have to say this is the last question. Okay, thank you. Please identify yourself and direct your question.
My name is Florence. I wanted to ask the journalists about some of the differences between reporting stories for Myanmar internally and reporting stories internationally. What are some of the challenges, and do you tell different kinds of stories? Thanks.
That's a very good question, I think.
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you. Fortunately, I was able to cover like Black Lives Matter and the COVID pandemic in the U.S. and also a little bit of protests here, like just taking some pictures. So what I really noticed comparing to security forces in the U.S. or in other country and in Myanmar is that, like, you know, in Myanmar they are not human. Like, you cannot communicate with them, isn't it? You cannot explain them. Like, if you, so in the beginning of the coup, we order like some helmets, you know, to save from rubber bullets or anything, but we had those helmets only for a day, because we realized that they have been targeting us. If we are wearing the helmet, they know that we are the journalists, you know. So they have been targeting us. So we just get rid of it, and we kept cover. But in other countries, even in other like military ruled countries, like you can explain, like you can communicate with them, you know. So and the other big problem that Myanmar military has is that they have a message. They have an idea that, how to say, Myanmar, the journalists are like selling information of their nation to the international organizations, and they thought we've been making profit out of that, you know. So they thought like we are troublemakers for them, you know, regardless of whether we involve in any protest or anything, you know. So it is really like impossible to document. And many, whenever they raided office, they destroyed, you know, hard drives, computers unnecessarily, right? And sometimes like they will arrest, like if they don't see a family, if they don't see the person that they want to arrest, they would get someone else from the home, like a family member or whatever. And I think Kuyawintu might have like some stories to tell too.
Well, yes, and can I add and remind that the focus of the question being about reporting internally for domestic audience, as opposed to DVB is one of the big organisations that has, you know, big both English language and Burmese language operations. So I presume you as TV, maybe in fact I didn't even ask whether you're reporting mainly in Burmese or English, but obviously anyone reporting in Burmese is reporting for Burmese people, and that's very different, because you can assume a lot of knowledge when you're reporting in English language. You're reporting for the world, and suddenly there was this huge surge of interest in the world, in lots of people who asked me the most basic questions, you know. So your audience must be quite diverse like that. What's your perception of that difference?
For me, I always report in Burmese. Targeted its audience is Burmese people. So, but sometime if we need, I did report in English on the street of Rangoon for Norwegian government TV and RK, because they asked me to report the protest, the biggest protest in Rangoon, Thailand. So I did once, early days of protest in February in Rangoon. So, but to me, I don't see the difference, because I don't know why, because I just need to explain what is going on in here in Burma to the English spoken people or Burmese people. But to the English spoken people, I have to explain very very important stuff first, I can't tell you all the details because we've know a lot,
right?
And I have to explain you. I have to tell you what is going on in very easy way and very easy to understand. So we have to break it down all this fast.
You mean more context and background
exactly.
for the foreign viewers?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we always have to choose. We have English department in DVB, so the editor in that English department, he knows what stories goes for the English spoken audience.
Right.
So we chose it. Sometimes if I got a story for the English audience, so I sent to English team. So that's how we've been rolling for decades. So not much different, I think. Yeah.
I can add one more point. So it is also a bit funny. In Myanmar, like we have many short names, you know, like NUG, PDF, KNU, KNLA. So
you think SAC,
SAC, yeah, a lot. So of course, like Ginny and Gwen, they have better knowledge, you know, like on all these short names. So whenever we report to for the international community, we have to explain a lot about, you know, the like Gwen said, background and context. Also, we have to be like very focused or very precise with our presentation. In this way, we can bring more attention, unless it is not a good story. But for local audience, I think it is pretty generic. It is pretty more flexible.
Right. I think the beauty of your film actually is that it works in both Burmese and English. I think it's very it's meaningful for both, which is a tricky thing to achieve. So congratulations for that.
Thank you.
Just let me turn to the last. This is the last question, and it goes to my old friend there, Wolfgang. Introduce yourself.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Wolfgang. I would have 10 million questions for you guys. But,
well, can we keep it to one?
But I'm gonna keep it to one. Yeah. So, and thank you for what you're doing, and it's amazing what you do. It's fantastic. And the question I really have is, how can we help you? What do you need? And you know, there's been COVID, so everybody's been distracted with their own shit. And you know, my wife and my family, we used to live in Yangon in 2014, 2015. And we love the Burmese people. We went there the first time in 2005, 2006, and we saw the hope and we saw the movement towards freedom and democracy, and here we are. So how can we help?
Sure, that's a very good question.
I think that's a question about the international community, really. Yeah.
Well, since this place is FCCT, and there are many of my editors sitting here, so I want to say that please do more stories. No, I understand like you all are doing a lot of stories about my country. But of course, like we still need more stories, photos, videos, text, whatever. You know, also by doing the stories about Myanmar, it will be also great. Like if any journalist can go to the border location, like Thailand, India, China, whatever, and spend time there, like, you know, a week or two, you know, not just like 3-4 days. You know, in this way, it will be better to have more contacts, more stories. There will be like better in-depth view on what's happening, and in this way there will be more impactful full stories. So that's the first thing. And the other thing is that there are many organizations, even FCCT, or like there are many organizations at the border. You know, Burma Spring Film Festival. You know, please donate money to this organization. And in Myanmar, they are young. They are young. Like genius, I would say. They have been doing campaigns like, you know, click to donate campaigns, which is really beautiful. They don't need to, you don't need to pay any money. You just, whenever you are sitting on your desk or whatever, you just play YouTube in your background and you play some music, and then in this way they get gain on viewership, advertisement, and then they get money, and all these monies go to the refugees and the democracy movement, you know. So you can donate money, or like you can at least click on YouTube, you know, like, or you can play some games, you know. This is how our Myanmar people can be creative in terms of fighting against the military, you know. I was at the border in Mae Sot. I have been visiting to shelters, meeting refugees, politicians, you know. So what I have witnessed there is that there is not much of international organizations. They are local organizations like Burmese migrant organizations, and of course there are also some international organizations that have been trying to provide help along the border, but they do not have. They were not allowed, you know. They were stopped, you know. So it would be great, you know, if we can find ways for them to go to these shelters. And sometimes refugees were misinformed that the war in Burma is over, so you can return back. So, and it's not provided by any authorities or official. It's by, you know, some of those who are running the shelters and stuff. And it is also very important that we have to keep feeding information to the refugee community as well, you know, because the refugee community, they don't have electricity, they don't have internet. They might have internet in their phone, but when they cross the border or when they are living along the river, you know, it is so difficult for them to access internet. So they need a lot of like solar panels, batteries, and stuff like that, you know. And there are many Burmese migrant organizations I can put you in touch with. Yeah, and please feel free to reach out to me individually. I'm always happy to assist. Thank you. And if you have any.
Thanks, Aung Naing Soe. And there's one online question, and the final question in-house can go to our esteemed colleague, Lisa. Introduce yourself.
Hi, Lisa Martin from AAP. Just a quick message to the French woman who was upset that there wasn't enough information in French about what's happening in Myanmar. I work for Agence France Presse. We have a fully staffed bureau in Yangon and teams of stringers across the country. We're producing stories in French and English. So set a Google alert to Burma and Myanmar and AFP and have a look at our coverage, because our team are doing some amazing stories, and it's great that there are people in France who are interested in a very important country. My question to the panelists is, in the immediate aftermath of the coup, there wasn't a lot of international attention on Myanmar, and then fast forward to August, and the Taliban took over Afghanistan, and the world's attention sort of decreased. And now we're looking at potential war in Ukraine. How do you, as journalists, find the motivation to keep reporting on these very important stories when perhaps attention spans of readers in other countries is completely distracted by other things happening in the world?
Well,
the motivation source, I would say, is the pain. Like, it's the pain inside. Like as much as we see, we hear, we witness the stories of the people and the people in the movement, we feel pain. Like, we're angry, and this has motivated me and many of my friends to keep working on the story. Myanmar is a country, you know, that is not media friendly. You know, like, we are afraid of cameras. We are afraid of journalists. We thought that journalists are, you know, betraying the country. We thought journalists getting dollars, you know, by selling information, you know. But as a journalist, I feel like I have to understand those people in my country, that I have to raise awareness that okay, the news media is not like that. The news media can be supportive. We have to be very, very patient. Like we Myanmar has been another military for like, I don't know, like many decades, like since my grandparents' time until our time, until next generation time, So also whenever I thought like, we have been trapped in the same circle. Just recently, Kuyewintu told me that he met Jenny, he met Gwen, he is back in FCCT. So he was in the same scenario like how many years ago, bro? Like 10, 15?
I was in Bangkok 11 years ago. I was studying, and I came to this FCCT as a guest, as a student who is studying in Bangkok University. So I've been here 11 years ago as a student.
You were also exiled back then, right?
Yeah, because of my dad. My dad was editor for the Burmese news media, online media. So at that time I was just a student, young Burmese student who is living in Bangkok, can't go back home because of my dad. So yeah.
So this cycle has been repeated. Like we have to break that up, So this is also another motivation. And the other thing is that I keep getting a lot of assignments, and in this way, like I can spend money in this movement. So that's why I always said yes to assignments again.
Yeah, we know.
So yeah, these are the motivations, I think. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. And I think we have one question from a viewer from Myanmar who wanted to clarify and apologizes if she got it wrong, that you mentioned that you can report. She wanted to clarify whether you said that it had been difficult to report on Rohingya and Rakhine State issues, whereas you said that you could report on Chin, Karen, but not Rakhine.
No, I said Karen.
Oh,
Yeah,
then you couldn't
I
report.
I was in the Karen jungle, not in Rakhine.
No, I know, but she
Yeah.
was asking to clarify whether you said that you had experienced difficulties in the past.
Oh, in the past?
Yes.
Yeah, of
reporting on Rohingya, and why is that? Yes, you can say, you can tell us. It's all right. We've heard it before.
Can I start?
Yes.
Okay. So I went to The Hague for ICJ coverage 2 years ago.
Of the hearing of the case
So Aung San
against...
Suu Kyi was there, and we broadcast live. So I covered live from The Hague. I met some Burmese people, and who just blamed me. At that time I was like preparing for the live broadcast, so technical things. And then a Burmese guy who lived in Netherlands for so long, and he came to me and he asked me, "Aren't you Burmese guy? Why are you asking this kind of questions?" Something like that. I'm kind of like a traitor or something like that. He just came to me and talked to me face to face, and I was, okay, bro, I'm Burmese guy, but I'm doing my job as a journalist. So I came here because they came here to support Aung San Suu Kyi. So I had to ask a lot of questions to different group, people like Karen people, and also Rohingya people and other Muslim, people. They gather in front of the Peace Palace in The Hague, and they asked for the justice. So, and the other Burmese people who who came from Burma, like they are around like 40 or 30 people every day. So they just shout, "We stand with Aung San Suu Kyi." So my questions to them was, what do you support? Why you came here? So you said you support. So what do you support? Because we are being sued by the Gambia government as a genocide. So are you supporting genocide? But I didn't ask that question, but I just talked to you really fast, and what do you support? Why are you here? And they just, mostly, like 90% of the answer I got, I love Aung San Suu Kyi, that's why I'm here. Most of the people, they answer that. So we just love Aung San Suu Kyi, so we came here, to support Aung San Suu Kyi. I was like, okay.
So did you report that on TV?
Yeah, of course.
Oh,
At
you
that
did?
time,
You
that guy who just blamed me, and then I just back him. Okay, bro, I'll do my best. And then I was on live on camera, and then he came to me, and he went live on his mobile phone. Oh, this DVB guy is making problem, asking questions, making problems. He's with the Rohingya side, something like that. He just yelled me, and he just pointed at me, and he just followed me all the way. I was like presenting on camera at that time. So he just like, oh yeah, this guy, something like that.
So you did.
So I faced that, and I got a lot of comments on DVB Facebook.
Positive or negative?
Negative. Negative, yes. So at that, whenever it comes to Rohingya issue, we journalists had to be really, really careful about what is our editorial guideline.
Right.
We have to stick with that. Otherwise, we have to be, somebody might sue us. I went to Rakhine, and I reported about what is going on in Rakhine for Rohingya issue, and also the civil war in Rakhine. So I reported, and then at that time the Burmese NLD government, and also the generals from because they've got 15% of the seat in the parliament, right? So in the region,
25.
Yeah, 25. Yeah,
yeah,
sorry.
I believe.
So yeah, you're right. So the minister of the state is from NLD. The other minister who control everything is from the Burmese military. So that guy tried to sue me for going to Rakhine State without permission.
Right.
So the reason they said is we concern about journalist security.
Right.
So
I see.
Whenever it comes to Rakhine and the Rohingya issue, we journalists have to be really, really careful.
Right, but I think that question was really more asking you if you were actually implying that you were having difficulties with your organisation reporting, or if it was more about the actual difficulties of
with the audience.
reporting. Yeah, with the audience, with people around you, with abuse, with...
for my organisation, our DVB, like we've got like freedom to produce
anything.
Yeah, anything. Yeah, no one's control me. So even my editors, they don't know what I'm doing.
Wow, out of control.
I mean it.
Yeah, I think that's the first I've heard an editor saying that they told a reporter to stop working and you wouldn't listen to them.
No, I mean what I'm saying is, I do as a journalist, so they trust me. So I can report everything I want.
Right.
So I got back to Burma in 2016. And I've been traveling around the country for 5 years, from north to south, entire country. So I covered every issue in Burma. So mostly I fight with those military officers all the time.
Right.
They don't understand what is journalist role.
Right.
They don't understand what is journalism. And as he said, most of the Burmese people, they are not familiar with the cameras.
Right.
That's a big problem. So we have to be really like, Burmese journalists, they are really brave. They know how to deal with all the difficulties. They know how to, sneak out from the militaries. They know how to deal with them. Because, all the Burmese journalists, they've been working under dictatorship for so long. Before we were born. So they know how to roll. And respect to those Burmese journalists who are still rolling and doing their job inside Burma. They are in danger. They could die anytime. a lot of our friends are still inside. But
Right.
for us, we got no choice.
Right.
And also my organization needs me to stay free.
Right. Yeah.
I
Well, you
couldn't-
guys are obviously the secret weapons of Burmese journalism. You know, it's sort of.
So we
you
have to
will-
be free.
You will prevail. So,
I just want to answer the questions that who asked the how can you help Burma? So, I asked that questions to all the interviewee because I'm still doing my job from my hotel room right now. I never ever stop. So I interview a lot of youngsters, young people who are fighting in the jungle all over the country. So I talk with them, and whenever I ask, well, how people can help you guys, they always ask only one thing: weapons. They
right. Okay.
and also the big issue I'm facing now is my editor-in-chief asks me, your stories are covering about PDF. Everyone said they need weapons. They just need weapons. They just don't need food or shelters, or they just don't need anything. They just need weapons.
Right.
So you are reporting those stories all the time. He blamed me that. I said, that's all I can do. I ask people a lot of questions and showing what is going on and what do they need indeed. I know international community, they don't really like that kind of...
No, I think we'll move right on here.
He blamed me about that.
Actually,
You have to
I
be
think
really
we're thinking
careful.
more blankets, food, like sort of.
Yeah.
So we'll just read your stories to know what people really want. But I think this is the kind of audience that would like to give more, like relief supplies and perhaps cash assistance for displaced people.
Still, the cash assistance is also fine. Like.
Yeah.
Right.
That's bitter truth. That is bitter
Okay.
truth. Yeah.
All right. Thanks very much. And I'd just like to give the last word to Jeannie, if you'd like to say anything more before we wrap up.
Well, I just want to salute again our colleagues in the filmmakers and the journalists across Burma, but most especially those who remain inside the country, and most especially the ethnic media, who are taking tremendous risks in covering the situation everywhere from Karenni State to Chin State to Karen State. I think the ethnic media are truly remarkable. And I want to just clarify that all proceeds from the Burma Spring Film Festival do not support anything except humanitarian emergency assistance. No, and I don't mean that to be funny. We have to be really clear about it, that it's solely to support organizations that actively take a stance of nonviolence. So I just wanted to make sure, and please do share the festival with your friends and as widely as you can, because not just for the donations, but you will enjoy the feast, the visual feast and the storytelling feast that we have on offer there. And just to let folks know, if you're available, our colleague Leah messaged me to say, please come. We have our only other live event of the festival is Saturday at the C Junction, Southeast Asia Junction at the Bangkok Art and Cultural Center. We'll be showing a film that my team made some years ago called This Kind of Love, Dilo Chemyo, and it is a portrait of Aung Naing Soe, who was the founder of the LGBTQ movement in Myanmar and is a well-renowned human rights defender, and is currently the National Unity Government Minister of Human Rights. He will be joining live the discussion, and you will have an opportunity to speak with him. That's on Saturday at C Junction. It's on their website. And then on Tuesday is another film called very beautiful film by a Burmese maker called Irawadi Mon Amour. It's a very beautiful film about an LGBT couple who fall in love in a rural village. And given the recent arrest of Gigi, the transgender woman activist, that's the program they've curated there. So please come and spread the word, and if you can, please donate. It all counts. And thanks so much to the FCC team, to Gwen.
Indeed, and thanks to all. I'd also Yeah, and spare a thought, I thought what came across very powerfully in that documentary also was the fallen and your colleague who died covering, or the colleagues who died, and all those journalists, and 12,000 people who are in jail or detained rather, and so many more being killed. It's really this is our best tribute, I think, to them, and the sort of films you're making and you're reporting. So do support also the Foreign Correspondents Club of Thailand per se, and also the FCCT is trying to help with emergency grants or support for Myanmar media with a fund. There's a box at the entrance. Sorry, I don't want this to turn into a hard sell, but if you feel like giving, please do consider. A lot of these journalists have come out with almost no equipment. They've lost equipment. They're trying to do their stories, as we've just heard, and I think it's another good way to support keeping the window open on these terrible events in Myanmar, which is increasingly hard to report. And we, as you know, we've just had more news of internet crackdowns with the outlawing of VPN, virtual private network usage, and already the internet access is getting bad. So I think, you know, the greatest fear is a complete internet blackout, which is not inconceivable, and I think we need to try and support these independent media as a way to keep this window open. So thanks everyone for coming tonight. Look at the photos if you haven't seen already on the wall, and thank you Aung Naing Soe, Ye Win too, and Aung Naing Soe, your incredible team out there, Yamon, Theory, Bo, everybody. Thank you. And Julian, our tech maestro, thanks for the stream. The video will be on our Facebook page, so thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. Let's get a photo.
Thanks, everyone.
Your team. Your team to come up with this.